we view the physical universe, the creation that God made, as essentially a physical object lesson of spiritual truth, or say divine attribute. So the question is, let's take, for example, forgiveness. Forgiveness. How do we create a food and farming system that physically demonstrates, like an object lesson, that demonstrates forgiveness? And an ecologist would call this resilience or shock proofing or whatever, but I like the word forgiveness. Because the fact is, nature's not always benign. There are windstorms and droughts and floods and cold and hot. So how do we make a forgiving farming food system? Well, obviously it would be one in which the immune system of plants and animals gets stronger and stronger all the time, rather than weaker. Which is opposite what the current industrial food system does. It makes the immune system weaker and weaker, and you have more and more, vet bills and chemical, pharmaceuticals, whatever. It would be a system that reduces floods and increases hydration during droughts. So we build a lot of ponds, and these ponds catch runoff when it would be a flood problem for people downstream. And we can meter that water out during the regular times and hydrate the landscape. It would be one in which fertility increases and increases, but increases from real-time on-site solar energy converted to biomass, not dependent on petroleum-based chemical fertilizer for fertility. And so we do large-scale composting to insource the fertility rather than to outsource the fertility. And this creates a tremendous forgiveness, because now we don't have to buy the fertility. We don't have to send military personnel to the Middle East to make sure we continue to get petroleum-based chemical fertilizer. Suddenly we are we have closed that carbon loop, and that gives us resilience or forgiveness. Let's take another, very spiritual attribute. Let's just take beauty. All right. What does a beautiful farm look like? Well, a beautiful farm has diversity. It's not one that you have to walk through sheep dip and put on a hazmat suit to go visit your food. It's aesthetically and aromatically, sensually romantic. It's attractive. We as believers should be attractive. We should be magnetic to people around us. And so our farm, people should come there and see, wow, this is beautiful. What's different about this? How about take another one? Order. God is a God of order. Very much a God of order. And so how do we have a farm that exemplifies order? And so we, for example, we look at nature and say, well, how does nature sanitize behind herbivores? And you see birds following herbivores. And so we move the cows every day to mimic the way herbivores move in nature with wolves and grazing patterns using electric fence. So we move the cows every day, and then a couple days behind them come the laying hens in egg mobiles. They free range out, scratch through the cow patties, eat out the fly larvae, spread the cow patties into the soil, and essentially act as a biological sanitizer behind the cows, mimicking the order of the birds behind herbivores, the egret on the rhino's nose. So these are just they're big principles, but a final one I'll just mention, for example, is a spiritual truth is God is ultimately a God of relationship. And think about, the average industrial farm today, there is no relationship. It's one species, one thing, packed together. In fact, there aren't even very many farmers. There's nobody there. And so our farm, with all the multi-speciation, is just literally a choreography of complex interrelationships of different gifts and talents of different plants and animals working in symbiosis. Oh, that almost sounds like the church, And so these are these big principles that we should be building into our farmscapes, that then just immediately connect with people to help them to realize this is spiritual truth. This is divine attribute going on in a visceral way.